Welcome to a brand new edition of NFL Power Rankings. It is presented by Energizer. Mike M, Eric Edholm, who has been slaving. I mean, look, coming off a Monday night game, I'm not even playing. It was a late one, I think, for NFL fans, but it was even later for Eric. That email that dropped into my inbox, Eric, you've been logging some serious time here prepping for today's show.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Thursday's Packers-Commanders game feels like it was about a month ago. This week in particular just felt really long. Let's say it that way.
All right, let's get right to the rankings and some of these top teams in the NFL. You're not seeing dramatic changes at the top here. 1 through 4 remaining the same. That's the Eagles, the Bills, the Ravens at 3, the Packers at 4. There's a voice change there. Trust me, we will get to that reason in just a moment here. Tampa Bay, an impressive win for them. This is another 2-0 start. They move up a spot. The Lions bounce back. They're in that 6th position. The Rams at 7, and then the Commanders at 8. All right, from an Eagles perspective, take me through this because there's like a real physicality in this game, and you can make an argument. Travis Kelce doesn't drop that football heading into the end zone. Maybe we're talking about a different result. Was there any consideration dropping this Eagles team down, or you just said, hey, Super Bowl champs, 2-0, you keep winning, I'm going to keep you there?
Yeah, I think that was kind of in the back of my mind the whole time. Like, are we really going to punish them for going into Arrowhead? Clearly a big revenge game for the Chiefs, coming off the loss, coming off the Super Bowl loss. And that play right there, Andrew Makuba, the rookie, really did turn the game. Credit to Josh Simmons for making an incredible tackle right there. It's pretty amazing effort for an offensive lineman. But, the Eagles just made a few more plays than the Chiefs in virtually every phase of the game. And that really was the difference right there. And look, they may end up looking a lot like the 2024 Chiefs, right? In that they win these close games. They're not overly impressive. The record is going to be strong, but I think coming off the Super Bowl win and every sort of bit of goodwill they've built up to this point, they still are the team to beat. So I get the sentiment for maybe sliding them down a spot or two, more dangerous teams out there. But for me, until they start failing, I'm not going to really drop them down too precipitously. And right now they stay at the top.
And it's tough, too, because in week 1, it's a closer win than I think people had anticipated against the Dallas Cowboys team. Another close win here, to your point. And let's be real, they got the Los Angeles Rams in this next game. The Rams are also a really good team. I wouldn't be surprised if, A, they win, but B, it's another close victory. I don't know, based off of these opponents, especially from an LA perspective with that defense, I don't know if you're going to be able to blow those dudes out. All right, it is time for Future Champions, and it is presented by FanDuel. Odds to win the AFC. I love this. The Ravens, at this point, the favorite, which candidly kind of surprises me after what we saw in week number 1 against the Buffalo Bills. There is that head-to-head that Buffalo has. Kansas City and the Chargers also in the mix, and I think that this graphic is going to change. We should have this conversation in a couple weeks, but let's start with this Ravens team. This is the squad, man, that I expected to see in week 2, candidly in week number 1. When they are healthy, when they are right, my God, they are dangerous. And I know some people might say, hey, it was the Cleveland Browns that they beat up, but I mean, Eric, all phases of the game, dude, this team is legit.
No doubt. Yeah. And we saw that for 50 of the 60 minutes in Buffalo, too. They clearly looked like the better team until the Bills flipped the script. So, look, you could argue, hey, it was 20-10 in the fourth quarter. The Browns still had a chance. But at no point when I was watching that did I feel like they actually had a chance. So, it's Lamar. We know about his superpowers. He can change a game, obviously. Derrick Henry, hate to see another fumble. He did recover it, though, and I'm sure he'll still get his regular load. But they have so many different weapons. Defensively, they can make plays. Special teams, Tyler Loop's been good so far. No problems there like we had last year. So, I think they're ironing out these little issues that kind of plagued them at times last year. And for all the disappointing losses they've had over the years, they bounced back exceptionally well. That's also the hallmark of a very good team. They did that on Sunday. There was no doubt who the better team was, even before the fourth quarter.
Look, we'll talk Lions in just a moment here, but they get them on Monday night. How significant is this week 3 game for the perception of both of these teams?
Yeah, no doubt, especially with the Lions, coming out and coming flat in week 1. The Ravens letting a 15-point lead go in the fourth quarter, even if it was on the road at Buffalo. These are the kinds of games that, yes, we've seen better efforts in week 2 from both teams, but head-to-head, especially with the Lions getting blown out in Baltimore a few years ago, this one's going to tell us a lot, I suspect.
I got home last night. I got to do the post-game show on Monday night. So I think we got off air like 2 a.m. Eastern time. I get home, I unwind, and I go, hey, like I want to know what I'm doing tomorrow. And I'm thinking about your power rankings, kind of going through some of these emails that have been going back and forth here. And I noticed that you had the Green Bay Packers in that 4th spot. And I say to myself, well, I think there's an argument that they are the number 1 team in the NFL. The head-to-head here with the Baltimore Ravens, they got that and just throttled a really good, at least in my mind, team in the Washington Commanders. Maybe that's overstating things, but they looked really, really good. How much did you, in your mind, go back and forth? I'm not saying number 1, but at least have them in front of the Ravens.
Absolutely, yeah. There was, to me, 4 teams that belonged at the top, and you could argue they deserve to be in any order, and that's fine. Maybe some people put the Bucs or another team in there, but I think it's really 4 right now. And look, based on what we've seen so far, granted 2 home games, and the Green Bay Packers look spectacular, especially defensively. When Jordan Love and that offense get going, and obviously Jaden Reed's injury is a concern, and they're still trying to figure out who their true go-to guys. Matthew Golden's still kind of building up chemistry with him, but Love's had some spectacular throws. Look at Tucker Kraft right there, maybe the best tight end in the league, or one of them anyway. He's been spectacular. Romeo Doubs has contributed. So I think when they find a little bit more rhythm and they get Josh Jacobs going and they get their offensive line healthy, you look at the complete picture, then you can say to yourself, all right, do they stack ahead of the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles, all those teams that are traditionally near the top?
Yeah, and I misspoke there, and I know I used the term throttled, by the way. I mean, what that defense did and how it looked against Jaden Daniels and company, I mean, that to me is one of the more impressive things, and you get that week 1 against the Lions. So once again, I get where we're at right now with the Packers and sort of like how we're supposed to understand like where this team truly does slot, but it is an impressive performance nonetheless, and I think you can make the case Green Bay should be the number 1 team. Look, we're splitting hairs here, but the Tampa Bay Bucks got some injury concerns. They get the win on Monday night. It's another 2-0 start. Baker, it feels like they're never out of these games with Baker Mayfield.
He's incredible, isn't he? This is the guy the Cleveland Browns gave up on, right? This is the guy the Carolina Panthers moved on from. I understand the Rams situation. They had him briefly there, but, this is Tampa Bay's game, one of the best reclamation projects, if you will, ever. And, those legs come out, that scrambling, swashbuckling Baker, that's the guy we love to see. 3rd and 10, 4th and 10, those long yard situations. He's not afraid to pull up. And look at Bucky Irving, too. Boy, I said last night on X, I said, I wished I loved him more coming out of the draft. I liked him. I didn't love him, and he's really turned into a great player. Rashad White finishes it off. Egbuka, obviously the Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame receiver. They've got some weapons, but to your point, you lose Luke Gedeke, your right tackle. Charlie Heck got harassed a little bit during the game. He was under fire. You lose Kalijah Cansey for the season now, we know, on defense. I mean, those are 2 big losses, but 2 dramatic victories in 2 weeks, and comeback fashion in both times and on the road. I mean, they're close, but this is why I like the Bucs to be a Super Bowl contender in the preseason, because of Baker and their grittiness.
Yeah, I think there's some real concerns right now regarding Houston. I think you can make the same case, tough schedule, lose to the Rams the way that they did. I didn't think they were going to go 0-2 with a week 2 loss against Tampa Bay at home. I thought that was enough to give them an opportunity to win this game. And once again, they had their opportunities late. They just weren't able to close. The Lions are a team that look like the Lions team that we had anticipated seeing at the start of the season. Do we just say, hey, all is right in the world in Detroit just based off of what we saw in week 2?
I don't know if all is right, but for 1 week, it certainly is. It answered a lot of the questions that were raised in Green Bay. Does this team still have the explosiveness? Does this team have that purpose on offense? And it wasn't there week 1. It certainly was against Chicago. They withstood a little early charge. You knew Ben and the Bears were going to be fired up early. They ran out of gas, and the Lions just absolutely stepped on their necks. So, it's that killer instinct that made them so dangerous last year, and I think it's still there, right? We still see Jared Goff operating with precision. Isaac Tisla has joined the mix now and makes terrific catches. St. Brown tied for the league lead in touchdown grabs. So that kind of fire and that kind of enthusiasm was sorely missing in the first game. It felt like a return to normalcy in this one. And then again, we'll see if they can sort of perform this well against the top tier teams. I mean, right now we only have a small sample size, but I feel a lot better after watching that game tape.
Yeah, look, and we go back, and I made reference to it when we talked about the Ravens. Monday Night Football, to me, this will dictate, in a lot of ways, how we perceive both the Lions and the Ravens over the next few weeks. I think all of us seem to think that these are two of the premier teams in the NFL. We'll see what the head-to-head will go and tell us. The Commanders, there's some concern right now about Jaden Daniels with the knee injury. We got probably a look at Marcus Mariota. How do you navigate this if you're Dan Quinn?
Yeah, because I don't necessarily, even if this is only a 1-week injury, let's say he misses one game, it's not as if the concern suddenly has gone away. Still, he's obviously playing through pain on some level, but there's the fact that the protection around him has not been great. And Jaden obviously took sacks last year. We talked about it then, but he was able to find escape hatches. He was able to get out of trouble. You didn't see him come up limping the way he did like that on Thursday night. So the fact that he's getting more painful hits, more frequent, especially after they went out and got 2 more offensive tackles in the offseason, thought that was an upgrade. So far, it necessarily hasn't been. I don't, maybe a slight upgrade, but still, I mean, the results overall have been fairly pedestrian, I would say. So no big immediate concern, even with the missed game potential. I still think they're going to be fine, but this only intensifies and amplifies the need to build a wall around this guy and make sure the play calling reflects that, and make sure, he's got free looks to guys like Terry McLaurin, who's gotten off to a slow start as well.
I will say this game against the Raiders is supremely important. If Jaden Daniels doesn't play, they still need a W here when you consider on the road against Atlanta, on the road against the Chargers are those next 2 games that are looming. So those are tougher matchups. And I say what you want about the Falcons. I think you can make a case, man, one of the more improved teams in the NFL. And maybe that division ends up giving us 2 teams in the postseason. I mean, Michael Penix, and we'll talk about him coming up here on Power Rankings. I thought Penix looked good, and this is not the same defense we've seen in the ATL over the last few seasons. Just getting started here, though, on Power Rankings. Teams 9 through 16. Don't look now. Outside of the top 9, the Kansas City Chiefs, how far did they fall? The answer is coming up next.
Power Rankings is brought to you by Energizer. Still going.
Back here on Power Rankings, along with Eric Edholm, Mike Am with you, and these are Eric's teams 9 through 16. The Chargers, another win for Monday Night Football. They move up 4 spots, cracking the top 10. The Denver Broncos drop a spot. Sort of interesting to see them in that 10th position, considering how they lost to the Colts, who we'll talk about in just a moment. Kansas City, 0-2. Outside of the top 10, this might be history-making in the world of NFL Power Rankings. The Colts, a huge mover at 12. The San Francisco 49ers at 13. The Seahawks move up 5 spots to 14. Atlanta also moving up 5 spots into that 15th position. And despite a win, the Cincinnati Bengals at 2-0, falling 4 spots to round out that top 16. All right, Eric, I don't think, I think the answer is yes. You haven't had Kansas City outside the top 10 since you've been doing these power rankings. What's the level of concern right now for Patrick Mahomes and this team, an offense that looks a little out of sync?
Yeah, obviously the hope is that Xavier Worthy gets back, and in 4 games, they're going to have Rashee Rice as well, but what's the record going to be, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Obviously, we've seen some teams climb out of big holes. The Rams are a great example, but, seeing them slug their way down the field and really try to grind out games and have Mahomes rely on his legs, that's why these kinds of mistakes, the interception off Kelsey's hands, that's a play he and Mahomes have made 1,000 times. You assume that it's going to work. It didn't on this play. It ended up being a huge difference in the game. They did make a few connections late, but they missed a few as well. It took a lot of effort just to get to where they got. And the question is, can they survive until they have that full complement of playmakers? The defense, to their credit, was much better in week 2. Yep. That unit still gives me hope, but as these tough games keep coming, I know they have the Giants 0-2 next week, but still, beyond that, there's some real challenging games that they've got to figure out a formula here. Can they run the football? Do they have other options on offense? That's the big question right now. It just seemed to be lacking some pizzazz and some energy on that side of the ball.
Patrick Mahomes, back-to-back weeks, leading this team in rushing yards. That's not a recipe, at least in my mind, for success. I don't want my quarterback to be in that position, especially when it's 1-5. Time for Power Movers. It's presented by Energizer. Maybe also history-making. I don't know if I've seen a mover of 12 spots. The Indianapolis Colts Daniel Jones just dealing these dimes at this point. Are you buying this? Oh, clearly you're buying them because you moved them up 12 spots. But to keep this going, I think there's a real argument here. They could win this division.
Yeah, they could. I mean, when your punter has not attempted a punt through 2 games, Rigoberto Sanchez has the best job in the NFL. $2.5 million to sit on the sidelines. That's because they have this offense. They have the ability to move the ball in myriad ways, right? Jonathan Taylor, the old standby, get him involved as a receiver, kind of open up some avenues for him that way. You've got Tyler Warren, the rookie, stepping right in and making a difference. Obviously, they've got an offensive line that they have put a lot of investments in. This is the great surrounding cast that Daniel Jones has. Downs can make plays. Pittman doesn't even have to have a big game anymore like he used to. And that's the beautiful thing here. I think it's helped take some pressure off Daniel Jones because they have 5 or 6 playmakers, because they have a fortified line in front of them. And Shane Steichen was brought in to be the offensive guru. His play calling's been terrific. His design of this group, accurate field goal kicking. I mean, this is all you want from your team. And they need a little help, but this is still a big victory for them against Denver, and dramatic to say the least. And they're deserving of the respect. If they do it against Tennessee next week, that'll obviously prove a little bit more that they're for real.
Hey, real quick, Anthony Richardson, the last we've seen of him, barring obviously injury.
I think so. I mean, look, that discussion has been tabled, put on the side. No one's really talking about it right now, but it is interesting, right? How far can Jones take him? That's the big question we still have remaining. He's been great so far.
Yeah, he has been. The Atlanta Falcons, they move up 2 spots right now. Week 1, week 2, get a win. We'll take that in a big spot on Sunday Night Football. Penix, man, I'd pay to go and just watch him throw. It is such a pretty release. But I think the bigger issue, and I shouldn't say issue, the bigger notable aspect of their game is the defense looks like it's thriving right now.
Yeah, outside of that late breakdown against Tampa Bay, I mean, they've been terrific this season. You really got to look at the 4 rookies they drafted, 2 on the edges and 2 in the secondary, and they've been terrific. Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., contributing to the rush up front, big part of that 6-sack unit on Sunday night. Xavier Woods made a play late in the game. Billy Bowman was all over the place. So, they've already added to a secondary that has Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in football. And, we kept waiting for this pass rush to finally develop. It feels like it's been about a decade, but you put that in with a strong ground game and Penix making throws that weren't made last year when Kirk Cousins was quarterback. And boy, I mean, I'm looking at him at 15 and wondering if I may have him a little low. So, 18. So, they're in that mix of could go down, could go up, but the early returns have been very good.
Yeah, they have been. I'm looking at a Cincinnati Bengals team as well, because this is like sort of the significant news. And I know we started power rankings, and there's a slew of quarterback injuries. You could look at J.J. McCarthy. You can obviously point to Jaden Daniels. We talked about that as well. But Joe Burrow going to be gone now for 3 months. Is this a situation from a Bengals perspective where you just can't you can't navigate this?
I will say this is clearly an all-in season, right? You saw from the Trey Hendrickson negotiations, signing him to a 1-year deal. They're basically saying Super Bowl or bust, right? They made the receiver contracts work along with Burrow's deal. Everything was poured into this season, and now the quarterback is gone. On the positive side, Jake Browning did some really good things 2 years ago when Burrow got hurt. They were 5-5 when he took over, and they were 8-6 at one point with a chance to get in the playoffs. He had a couple games that got away from him. Wasn't all pretty, and even Sunday, look, 3 interceptions, 2 of them were not good. I mean, I think one of them you credit the defensive player. The other 2 were just bad throws. He's got to clean that up. He did lead the comeback. You give him a ton of credit against a pretty good Jags team, I think. But I don't know it's completely mailed in at this point, but the vibes have to be incredibly low after yet another injury. You just hope that Joe Burrow is not the next Andrew Luck or Burt Jones or one of these quarterbacks we look back and say what might have been. You pray that he can get back onto the field, but every year it seems like we're talking about a new injury with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive buzzkill because in terms of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, he's on that list. He's one of the best quarterbacks on the entire planet, having some issues staying healthy. Do you think they pick up the phone, Eric? Like, is there a trade looming just to add a little bit of depth inside that room?
I think if they see poor results early, like the first game or 2, and things are not working, you're not seeing Browning using his legs, you're seeing him misfire on some of those deeper balls like on Sunday, there could be some internal discussions, right? Do we have somebody in-house who can challenge him? If not, how do we address this? Is there still a chance? They also have to have a pretty good record. Starting 2-0 helps.
Yeah.
Obviously hasn't been terribly impressive overall. I mean, there's still some big questions with this team. But if they get to the point where they're 2 or 3 games over 500 at midseason, yet the quarterbacking's held them back, I suppose they could. Right now, I would guess no, but given the all-in nature of the season, why not?
Jake Browning, one of the better quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks in the NFL, and that is a really important job. The more the seasons go by, the more you realize you got to have depth in that room because of the amount of injuries that happen in that position. And we're just heading into week number 3 at this point. The Dallas Cowboys know about that based off of last season. The good news for them is they continue to stack wins. Where did they deserve to sit on the power rankings? And the Steelers defense, a little concerned. Is Eric? The answer to that's coming up next. Back here on Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Mike M and Eric at home with you. Eric's team 17 through 24. I think there's some real concern right now in Houston with this 0-2 start. They dropped 3 spots to 17 at 18. The Arizona Cardinals still undefeated at 2-0 though. I don't know, maybe we should be moving those Cardinals up. At 19, the Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy banged up. Carson Wentz, we get to see him. The Steelers, we'll talk about them in just a moment at 20. The Dallas Cowboys at 21. The Chicago Bears, what in the world is happening to this football team? At 23, it's the Jags, and at 24, it's the Vegas Raiders who lose on Monday Night Football. All right, level of concern. Week 1, get a win. Aaron Rodgers chugging from the fountain of youth. Week 2, coming back down to earth a little bit, and a defense that all of a sudden, Eric, doesn't look like a Steelers defense.
30 points allowed, 2 straight games. They only did that twice all last season. That's really got me worried. I mean, Mike Tomlin was talking in the preseason like this could be a historic unit. And that was part of the thinking of bringing Aaron Rodgers. We don't need him to be special. We just need him to be Aaron, and everything will work around him. So far, that hasn't been the case. They're having trouble getting the ball consistently to DK. You know, Rodgers used to never throw red zone picks. This one right here was pretty damaging, but huge special teams miscue too, with Caleb Johnson not recovering there, not catching the kickoff. And it was a 3-phase loss for him at home, you know, a convincing loss. I mean, even though they had chances to win. So, yeah, I'm concerned with all of a sudden with all 3 units, but especially that defense, which was sort of the bedrock of this team.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we said, hey, if Rodgers isn't even a superhuman out there, and if he's just average, this defense could be good enough. Just get consistent play, and we're talking about this team maybe making a run in the postseason. Look, they are on the road. They get New England in this next matchup. The rest of the rankings, we start at team 25, and it is those New England Patriots. The Titans, I know they're 0-2, but, man, Cam Ward's been flashing here. The Giants at 27, we'll get to them. They move up 2 spots. The Jets right now, Justin Fields concussion protocol. We got Gangrene at 28. 29, it's the Panthers. The Saints at 30. The Cleveland Browns at 31. And we have a new team at the bottom, and that is the Miami Dolphins. Okay, can I just throw like one thing out your way on the Giants?
Yes.
Okay. Week 1, disappointing for a lot of reasons. Offensively, couldn't get anything going. People talk about Jackson Dart. Hey, calling out just an offensive line. Andrew Thomas didn't play in that game, and I said, hey, let's see if this team gets healthy. In week number 2, they weren't healthy, and yet Russ was cooking. I am going to take sole blame on this loss because 3 different times at the end of this game, Eric, I said they're going to win, and they didn't. I was disappointed with Russ in that pick late, but I go, hey, dude threw for 450. He's the reason why we're in it. There are signs of life right now for this Giants team, and I'm glad you showed some respect to the G-men and you moved them up.
Yeah, some of this is reshuffling the deck chairs right at the bottom. Teams move up and down, and you sometimes get the bump. But I did see some life here. I am worried about the next 2 games, Chiefs and Chargers. That's going to be a huge challenge. And this may be one, Mike, where they look back on and say, we had it. We could have won. This is the kind of game you have to win if you want to save jobs and try to get back into contention after years of being out of it.
And they had those opportunities. We saw those explosive plays. And you're right. We saw the schedule before the year started. We said this is the toughest schedule in the NFL. And when you're right there and you have that opportunity, you have to deliver. Chargers and Saints, those next opponents, or Chiefs, Chargers, and then Saints. So maybe we're talking about a win at some point in a couple weeks against New Orleans. I made reference to the Miami Dolphins, new team at the bottom. You didn't love what you saw offensively from them?
Didn't. I mean, the offensive improvement is great, but Mike, if you have players only meetings in week 1 ahead of the loss, you know, and then another loss after it, things aren't going well. I don't think another players only meeting is going to help. And maybe it's a little rage bait for Dolphins fans, but look, they have not played well so far. Sorry.
Yeah. That is a massive problem. I think some of those guys might be thinking about vacation after the season if you're having those player-only meetings. So appreciate you watching Power Rankings.